We're going to be setting up LXC for GPU pass-through in Proxmox today, specifically for Nvidia GPUs. I'm going to show you how to also set this up for very large amounts of GPUs, as well as things like single and dual GPUs also for multiple LXC containers at the same time. This allows you to do things like local AI inference serving, as well as object detection in something like Frigate, and you can even do transcoding in something like Whisper. Having a lot of GPU power and having it accessible to multiple different processes at the same time is a game changer. And I'm going to show you all of that today. And also, you can follow along with the complete written guide that has very easy to copy and paste instructions on how to set this up. We're also going to be deploying Docker today in this. I hope you're ready. Let's get configuring. So at any time you're interested in checking out something or skipping around, you can use the chapters below to do that. And while we're going to be doing this and deploying it on the quad GPU rig that I've put together recently, this also works even on a single GPU. Let me also qualify this and say that I've tested this on everything from Ada all the way back to Maxwell. So pretty much every type of Quadro and GTX and RTX graphics card out there I've tested this on, so we should be good. Let me know in the comments below if you run into any issues. And as I mentioned, do make sure to follow along with the guide that I've put together, which has a lot of copy pasta friendliness to it, so you can get up and running really quick. So we're going to start with a complete run through of everything from installing Proxmox all the way up to a couple of BIOS things that you're going to want to make sure you have to get the most out of a modern system. I'm going to assume that you're on a semi-modern system. If you are on a system that is a little bit older, I will tell you some points that you might want to alter along the pathway also. As well, we're going to be using Rufus, and we are not going to be using Ventoy. Check back in this channel's history for the reason as to why. There is a good reason why, and I hope that there's some resolution so we could get back to using Ventoy pretty soon. But definitely the downloads here, you can grab the latest downloadable ISO, and at this time it's 8.2, and go ahead and grab your USB, toss that into your system, and you can drag the ISO over and click start. And you'll note that I'm burning this as UEFI and GPT because you're going to get a couple of benefits, especially since we're going to be doing ZFS as the root file system for the installation. So next I'm going to go ahead and close this, eject this, and I'm going to plug this into our system. And so this is the MZ32AR0. If you've been watching along with some of the rest of the guides that I've put together on this channel, specifically this is a AMD EPYC motherboard, and it does have some really cool things that you get when you go with a server or workstation class motherboard. One of the biggest features is a BMC, and that allows you to have remote IKVM capabilities that are very nice. And with the HTML5 viewer, this is essentially the same thing that you would get if you were plugged into a monitor on it. Hit F10 to go to the boot menu. As well, you can enable above 4G support and also bar option. And I'm going to select our USB, and we'll go ahead and install Proxmox. And we'll move past the agreement here. I'm going to go to options. Now, here's one place that you definitely want to, if you are going to be doing a BIOS setup, consider strongly that you probably don't want to use ZFS as your root file system for this to be installed on. And you can go to your advanced options here, and you can set the ARC max size. This is how much gigabytes of RAM can be utilized. Now, on a 256 system, it's fine for 16 gigabytes to be utilized for that. So you might want to adjust that down in your instance. However, also make sure to back off your HD size just a little bit. That gives you some room in case you run out of space on your disk to grow it manually. If you have SSDs, leave this as 12. Do not go down lower than that. And you can see I've got my two hard disks selected here. Now, you may have to actually select from those, and there may be multiple shown up, so make sure that you've got the right ones. So doing a RAID 1 with ZFS in UEFI is going to give us the capabilities to have, if one of the drives fails, the other one just continue operating. So that's exactly what we want to have happen here. We'll go ahead and click next on this. And when you're installing this, if you've got multiple NICs, you definitely want to pay attention to which NIC you're installing this on. So I have a Mellanox Connect X4 100 gigabit card connected to this that will be used for my primary LAN. So I'm going to let that just be the one that is selected here. The Eno 1 and Eno 2 are gigabit Ethernet ports on this particular machine. As well, I have a Prox 0 numbering scheme that adheres to the IP address assignments that I use. So the .40s are my Proxmox PVE instances, and Prox 0 will correspond to 40. And you can see /24 and .1.1 and .1.1 are used here for me. And after that, I'm ready to go ahead and install. Okay, we're now ready to reboot. And again, this is exactly what you would get if you had plugged in a monitor to your computer when you were installing Proxmox. BMC, just a very nice addition to things like servers and workstations. Yet another reason that I think home data centers, home data labs, home whatever this is behind me, are a wonderful option for people to grow into if you lose your mind. All right, once you have got this part of the display showing, you can go ahead and close out of your BMC or move over to a browser. And we're going to go ahead and go to, I think I can exit out of that, the website of our instance. We'll allow our self-signed certificate. Enter the creds you set up during the installation. Come over to your node, and from your node here, we're going to go to repositories. We're going to add a repository, and we're going to add the no subscription, add that one. And the enterprise repositories, we're going to disable those. So those are 2 of those right there. And we're going to come over to updates and hit refresh. Should find quite a bit, and we'll click upgrade. Go ahead and type yes. And since it will be installing the kernel update, you will need to reboot after this. And as you can see, it's going to warn you that you need to reboot. So we'll go ahead and do that now by typing reboot now. All right, the next thing after you have finished rebooting is with the node selected, open your shell backup, type lspci pipe grep, and then capital Nvidia. And you can see that we have our 4 Nvidia GPUs listed here. Now, I'm going to show you the process so that you know how to do it for multiple GPUs, but I'll mention the parts of it that would be applicable. It's actually just a few lines that you would change to make it 1 or 3 or 2 or 4, for instance, in this case. So we can go ahead and close this out now. And I'm going to move over to a terminal in Windows. That way I can zoom it a little bit better. You can see it. So let's go ahead and SSH over to our machine, and that'll be root at the IP address that you set. Install a couple of dependencies that we'll need to make sure everything's good, and update the interim file system, which will regenerate. And we'll need to reboot again after this as well. We'll take it just a little bit of time to make this happen. And so conceptually, you are on the outside of where the container lives right now on the node. And once you have the LXC container up, you will be inside it doing some of these operations also. But conceptually, you're at the root of the entire system right now. And we're going to go ahead and reboot now. And while we're rebooting, we're going to go ahead and get the updated latest driver from Nvidia. So come on over to the Nvidia drivers website. So I'm going to be getting a 30 series card driver set here, and for the 3090. Of course, these are for Linux all going to be the same. And once you click on this and find, it should pull up a couple of options. Go with the recommended. Don't do the new feature branch or the beta. Go with the recommended certified, and you can see that that's 550.127.05 as of this time. And when we click view on this, it's going to give us a link that we can use to download. So you can see this is a pretty modern one. This is about 15 days, 20 days old here. You don't need to download them all the time. And the other thing is, when you're doing it this way, it's going to be statically at this version level for some time. So if there is some sort of a bug, I've seen that happen a couple of times, you may need to update it or downgrade it even, but it will be static. So it will not be updating automatically when you do updates on your machine, which that's actually really good for stability. So hover over this download button, right click, and go ahead and copy a clean link to it. And once you're booted back up here, you can come back and SSH again into your system just by pressing the up key and entering your credentials again. Next, we're going to wget, and we're going to put in that link just by right-clicking and hit enter. It'll download this file. chmod plus x. This will allow you to execute it. And you can go ahead and copy this and put it right in there. Next, we're going to // click that again. And then at the end here, we're going to enter in DKMS. DKMS. It'll verify the integrity. And it can handle all of this stuff for you. Let it go ahead and do that, and then we'll need to reboot yet again. And go ahead and click on Rebuild Interim File System. And it's very nice that it takes care of all that for you. Now, since this is essentially a headless system, you do not want to install X or anything like that, so click on No here, and OK, and we're going to need to reboot. All right, now that we're booted back up here, we're going to go ahead, press that up arrow again, log back into our system. Now we should be able to type in VTOP and see our 4 GPUs listed there. Cool. So as you can see, they are consuming quite a bit of power at this time because they are in Gen 4 state. As they calm down, you'll see them go down in their wattage quite a bit there into the low teens, high single digits. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at these numbers here. So 195, 510, and 235. See, we've got Nvidia Cap 1, 2, Nvidia Control, UVM, and UVM tools. Also, we've got Nvidia 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you just have one GPU, you'll only have this. So you won't have a 1, 2, and a 3 listed here, but you will have these others listed. So the next thing that we're going to do is keep these numbers that we saw here, 195, 235, and 510 in mind. We're going to next go down here and grab a container image. So we're going to use a template, and you can type in Debian here. We're going to go with the Debian 12 standard image. So now that we've got the downloaded template, we're going to go ahead and create a container. Go ahead and give it a host name. We're going to call this GPU-1. I'm going to leave this as an unprivileged container. I recommend you do the same. Go ahead, enter in a credential password. This will be for your root user who you're going to use to log in as, or you could use, of course, an SSH key. If you wanted to add tags, you could do that down here. Go to your templates, select from the drop down your Debian 12. Your disks, we're going to go ahead and set this to 64 gigabytes, and you can leave the rest as is. I'm going to give this 24 CPUs, although, of course, I've got quite a few more than that. If you've got a small amount of RAM, you might want to actually up this to 1024, but I've got an insane amount of RAM, so I'm not going to worry about that here. And 32768 is what I will set this to, 32768. Next, we need to go ahead and set a static IPv4. 192.168.1.71 will be fine for me. And our gateway, 192.168.1.1. And you need to, at the back of that, go /24. I do not have a functioning IPv6 internally here, so if anybody knows guides for IPv6 networking on Proxmox, drop those in the description below, especially in relation to OpenSense. I have been messing around with it and cannot get it working. You can go to DNS. You don't need to change anything there either. Go ahead and confirm and finish. As soon as this is installed, which will happen really quick, we can go ahead and close that out. Click on the container now and click Start. Come over to your console really quick. And we're going to use root as the user and the credentials that we created when we created the container. Type apt update. And apt upgrade. Now, of course, in Ubuntu, you would use sudo for that. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit of a difference between Ubuntu and Debian. And as soon as it's done doing this, we're going to shut it down and continue on with our installation. Next, I'll come back over to our Prox0. And again, these numbers here, 510, 195, and 235, keep those in mind. And also your container number, so this is 100, we're going to need to know that. In case you have multiple VMs already in here, it might be like 110 or 105 or something like that. So go ahead and enter in your container number for the LXC container. Now, at the bottom here, we're going to go and copy in from the website the needed information and update these 510, 235. Now, this is set for a single GPU right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create three more. And I'm going to number those up 1, 2, 3, 3, and 2. Control X, yes, to write that buffer out. So PCT is going to push this file from the root system into the container, so you don't need to re-download the same file again inside for the installation. Oh, gotta start it up here to get it able to run. So we'll start it back up here, and now we'll push it inside the container. Now, once it's inside the container, we'll come over here, and we're going to do an ls, and you can see that the file's inside here. So chmod plus x, chmod plus x for the file in here, although it probably is okay already. And you can use the terminal interface here. It will work. /paste. Now this is an important command at the end of this. So no kernel modules. That is because it is inside a container. The kernel lives outside the LXC container on the root of the system. And just go ahead and click OK on those. And it will install inside here. Again, no X configuration needed. And it's literally that fast. So next we're going to install a couple of additional things. We're going to install the Nvidia Container Toolkit and NVTop. So to install the Nvidia Container Toolkit, we need to install curl and GPG, and we also need to remove the sudo. You may find these things change here from time to time, so keep that in mind if you're watching this and it's a couple of years after the publication. You may need to come down here and change some things. So we're going to apt install curl and GPG. And now we can go ahead and paste in the repository, and we'll do apt update. And now it should pull down the ability for us to go ahead and apt install Nvidia Container Toolkit. And there it is. And let's see if we've got apt install NVTop. Okay, great. There's one last thing that we need to do, and that is to edit our config toml. And we're going to change the no C groups to true. and reboot one more time. At this point, you should be able to run NVTop and also see, there they are, your 4 GPUs inside here as well. So congratulations, you've gotten through all of the hard stuff up to this point. So from here on out, it's pretty easy, pretty smooth sailing. So go ahead and hit F10 and reset. Next, let's go ahead and install Docker. So make sure you copy these commands directly from the website, because Debian LXC, something here, a little bit different even than what is on Docker's website. Just to get you guys going faster, it'd probably be better if you just copied and pasted this one. And after you're done with that, go ahead and do an apt update. Install packages down. And after it's done, you probably won't have to hit yes there, by the way. Go ahead and install Docker, Docker CE, and everything else. And one last thing is we're going to go ahead and tell the Nvidia Container Toolkit that the runtime to configure for is Docker. Whew. And I think we're almost there. And the final thing that we're going to do here is install the Dockge manager, which is a really easy way to get up and running with a Docker container interface management system that is much simpler than Portainer. But it's also, I think, useful enough that it makes life a little bit easier, and it gives you Compose, which I think is, for a lot of people that are newer to Docker, probably a pretty decent option. And you can see it pulling down the contents and setting it up. So now it's actually up and running. The next thing that we're going to do is go to the IP address. So that's 192.168.1.71, and 5001 is the port that we're going to go to. And on your first login, you're going to create an admin account. So I like DSP for my name. Okay, great. So now that you're inside here, we can go ahead and create our first stacks. The first thing that we're going to do is click on plus on the Compose, delete the default Nginx one that's there. Go ahead, tick on your external network first. If you don't tick that on first, it'll kind of reset everything that you've typed in here after you type it in. Hopefully that can be corrected sometime soon. And we're going to set this as Olama here. Click on save. And you can see that we've got NVIDIA count all GPU capabilities set here. So this will pass through all of the GPUs to the Olama instance here. Go ahead, click on start, and it should pull everything down that we need. And then we can have our Olama backend that will be powering our front end, which is OpenWebUI. So we'll let this go here. And while it's doing that, we're going to go over to Compose again. And I'm just going to take the OpenWebUI that I got over here. And again, click that default, delete that, OpenWebUI. Set that up there and save. And you can click update on that now and it'll pull everything down. So now we've got the rudimentary start for a complete segregated system. Very cool. And really, I think the possibilities that this creates are really decent. And now we are up and running, and let me show you how to connect those two together really quickly here. So if we scroll down here, you can see that it is finding the 3090s, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that it's found there. And your first time in OpenWebUI, configure a user account, and you are up and running. So real quick, now that we've got our Dockge stacks up and running for Olama and OpenWebUI, let me show you a couple of things while the Quinn 2.5 Coder 32B is downloading, and that'll be a in-depth review video that is coming up shortly. I'm not going to get into too much of that. I'm just going to show you that it works and that it does use all of the GPUs. But if we go to connections over here, so when you first come in, it'll be checked like this. Go ahead, uncheck that unless you're using OpenAI's API. Now, next, you can check the Olama API, and if you're running inside the same stack, you can leave that as the default. However, since we're running two separate stacks, I'm going to change this to the IP address that we're running at. make sure you hit the verify connection and then the save, and then you'll be connected up between your two Docker instances, and you'll be able to effectively start using your models. So we are, of course, downloading this model right now. It was initiated through OpenWebUI, but it's actually downloading over to the Ollama Docker stack itself. So pretty cool there. And there we go. We've got the Quinn 2.5 coder 32B. Of course, this comes default like this as a Q4. Now, I will be testing out multiple different variants of it, so make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can find that out, what kind of performance we got. And over here on the right-hand side, you can see that I've got, well, I'm going to make that actually a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's better. You can see that we've got our Nvidia 3090s displayed. So let me go ahead and, hello. And so at Q4, it fits well inside just one GPU, so you don't need to have multiple. And of course, everybody's question will be, what kind of tokens per second are you getting? 25.13. And that is, of course, at Quant 4. And to push all four of the GPUs at the same time, I've downloaded the FP16 at 61 gigabytes. That should definitely cross over into all of them. And as you can see, this is right now negotiating at 4x instead of 16x. That is a mistake. If you watched along with me building this, I've got to go back into the BIOS and make an adjustment as far as the bifurcation settings on that particular slot, because it's kind of weird on the MZ32AR0. Okay, and now we can see it's running, and you see what I was talking about. It loads about 1/4 since there are 4 GPUs. This is due to the way that the parallelism of tensors is handled. Hopefully we can see that change in some upcoming revisions, but definitely seeing that, of course, go to a full GPU utilization would be amazing. Still, this performance for an FP16 is pretty decent. I am not hating this at all. Now, I'm not going to check whether this is accurate and try to compile it and run it, but we will look at what the total tokens per second are at the end of it. My guess is this is around 8, maybe 9. And yeah, that actually was 10.5 tokens per second. So pretty decent. And for the warm-up question on this, I would say you got to factor that in when you're looking at how long the approximate total time took, because loading it in did take about, I would guess, 5 minutes, which is to be expected, but definitely the second question and stuff would go quite a bit faster. Much, much faster. And like I mentioned, make sure you hit like and subscribe for the in-depth Quinn 2.5 coder eval that we will be doing shortly on this channel. And so now we have our updated guide on LXC GPU Passthrough for Proxmox. So no matter if you're going for a multi-$1,000 quad GPU setup or just a couple of $100 on a much smaller rig, LXCs and Proxmox really help you maximize the benefit and utility that you can get out of any system. So I hope you've had a good time here. Do make sure to check out the links in the description below. Also, if you're interested in this kind of content, hit the like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell so you get notified when new content like this comes out.